13, hymn number 188, Come, Whoever You Are. Music director John Burton will direct us around. Okay, we'll sing it once through together. On the second time through, we'll sing it in 3 parts. How about we put it right down the middle? Okay? When this half of the room gets to the 5th bar, this half of the room starts. Okay? And they sing one word, you start with these bands.
Children are always welcome in this sanctuary at all times during the service. If you'd like to have us take care of your little ones during the service, we have a nursery downstairs. We also broadcast the service on closed circuit TV, which is located downstairs in the social hall during the nursery, if you need to stay during the nursery. After the service, everyone is invited downstairs for coffee and snacks at excellent company. Finally, please note the announcements in the order of service, which include many ways to participate in the life of this vibrant community. Now I'm going to introduce myself again as the board. Good morning. I'm Paul Carlson. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees here at South Valley. In the words of Rumi, come, whoever you are. Same song we just sang. It works together. Yeah, it makes sense. Whether you come with laughter in your heart or tears, you are welcome here. No matter where you've been, no matter where you're going, you are welcome here. No matter what brought you in the door, no matter who you love, you are welcome here. Whether you believe in God at all of the time, or some of the time, or none of the time, you are welcome here. If you come here with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands, you are welcome here at South Valley Unitarian Society.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Shani. That was fabulous. This is no caravan of despair. Ours is no caravan of despair. That's for sure. Hi, everybody. I missed you. Folks, I know I was away on vacation last week, and I thought about you a lot, fondly. And I want to say thanks to last week's worship team and Mary Norton for coordinating. Is Mary here today? No, okay. Well, I watched the service on our YouTube channel. We have a YouTube channel, and I was so impressed by the variety of talents. Like everything we do at South Valley, worship is an act of co-creation. And that service really embodied that co-creation. So thank you to Mary, and thanks to all the folks who contributed. I want to take a moment to talk about the next song that we're singing. It's Bring Many Names. I think it's number 23 in our great hymnal. And I chose it for both the way it fits a service about our whole lives, and also how it doesn't fit. Now you'll notice when you sing through all 6 verses, yes, we're singing all 6 verses, so steel yourself. If you need to sit down, it's okay. You'll notice as you sing through that it uses a gender binary. That is, that it only names male and female as the genders. And these days, ideas of gender and sexuality are getting, especially gender, are getting unpacked and they're getting dismantled. And we're moving away from this idea of a binary. So I love that this shows the way that our thinking and being are evolving. And that's the beauty and, to me, the power of Unitarian Universalism, that we're living, growing, life-affirming tradition that changes even from its own past. So we value the past, we're going to continue to use that song, and we're going to acknowledge the context that it was written in then. And on the positive side, this is the thing I really wanted to point to. In verse 5, if you're not exhausted by then, you'll notice there's a line that goes, that it speaks to the living and growing piece, and it goes, young, growing God, eager still to know, willing to be changed by what you started. Willing to be changed by what you started. So that's a profound part of the Our Whole Lives sexuality curriculum. We enter into it willing to be changed by what we're starting. And we are changed. We're changed in ways that we don't expect, and we're changed for the better by it. So in that spirit, the spirit of being changed by what we started, come, let us celebrate together. And our next song is Bring Many Names, number 23 in the great hymnal. I invite you to rise in body or spirit.
Thank invite the young and young at heart to come forward for our time for all ages. So today's service, I noticed, is about the spirituality of owl. And I got really excited because I have a baby owl that lives in my office. We're going to talk about what he believes. Interrogate his duty values. No. Actually, no, we're not. How many of you have heard of Our Whole Lives before today? Our Whole Lives, in case you haven't heard about it before today, is a comprehensive sexuality education program for all ages that our denomination and another denomination wrote together because they acknowledged that sexuality is a part of our whole life and that it was important for people who want to bring their whole selves into community to acknowledge that and learn more about themselves. So really, when we're talking about owl, we're not talking about my cute little owl that lives in my office. We're talking about a big curriculum. This is just the junior high curriculum, by the way, which is the biggest component, but we also offer classes for kindergarten and first graders. Are any of you in here, have any of you in here taken OWL for kindergarten and first grade? I don't think I see anybody. Okay, we also offer it for 4th and 5th graders. Did any of you take that class? Stand up, Cynthia. There's Hazel. I saw Hazel's hand go up. Okay. Actually, let's go ahead and stand up. If you've taken an OWL class, please stand up. You've taken an OWL class. Okay? If you've taken one, yeah. No, don't worry. How about if you facilitated an OWL class, please stand up. Okay, did you know we have over 30 people in our congregation who are trained OWL facilitators at all those different ages. So kindergarten first, 4th, 5th, junior high, high school, adult, young adult, and our head offices are currently working on an older adult curriculum. Yeah, that's exciting. Okay, if you have, if you've taken high school OWL or any OWL, will you please stand? Anna. Okay, keep standing. Everyone keep standing. If you have sent your children or your grandchildren or friends of yours to OWL, please stand. If you had heard about OWL before today, please stand. Okay. And if you've never heard about OWL before today, please stand. Excellent. Okay, so we're going to try a game that I just, go ahead, keep standing. We're going to try a game that I just learned, so you guys are guinea pigs. But I learned this game, and I heard that it's a great OWL game for all ages. And it's kind of like the hokey pokey. So, get ready. So it's a repeat after me game. So when I say something, you repeat it. And it's a do game. So after I do it, you do it. Okay? Are you ready? Okay. See this hand?
See this hand?
This is my hand.
This is my hand.
It is not your hand.
It is not your hand.
It's my hand.
It's my hand.
Mine, all mine. Give it some love.
Mine, all mine.
Excellent. This is my foot.
This is my foot.
This is my foot.
This is my foot.
It is not your foot.
It is not your foot.
It's
That's a happy sound, isn't it? The sound of children in our sanctuary, in our church, growing and living. I invite you now to join me for a moment of prayer and reflection. Let us move into a space of holiness, as we each understand our holiness. We lift up all those who are coping with illness, be it physical or mental, emotional or spiritual. We lift up all those who are bewildered and bereft. May they find comfort and healing. We lift up the caregivers. May they know that through the work of their hands, they bring love into the world. We lift up those who are rebuilding their lives after a deep loss or a deep wound. We remember those members of our congregation who lost loved ones. May they be carried by a loving community, and may they know that every step along the way brings them closer to wholeness. We lift up the advocates and the organizers and the troublemakers who put their voices on the line on behalf of the most vulnerable among us. May they know support and success. We remember those times when we failed to live into our best selves, and we seek to understand those who have hurt us. We forgive ourselves, we forgive each other, and we vow to begin again in love. We give thanks for this congregation. We remember the ways that this community creates beauty and provides consolation. May we find comfort and growth as we strive to live together as Unitarian Universalists. We lift up all the Unitarian Universalist congregations across this continent, across the world. In this time when our values are so different from the values of the day, may we find success as a movement and continue to earn our name as the love people. For these prayers and the prayers held in our hearts unspoken, we bring our best energy. May they be so. And may we all be held in the heart of love. Amen, and blessed be.
I was the Director of Religious Education here at South Valley. And for the past 5.5 years, usually in the winter, but sometimes in the summer, I've been sneaking into church right around the time that services end to facilitate our whole lives high school classes. I learned about OWL when I first started here at South Valley. At the time, South Valley was running junior high OWL every other year. South Valley was a pilot congregation for OWL. And when the program finished piloting, South Valley adopted it fully as part of our ministry to this community. In the years previous to my coming here, South Valley had also run the elementary and adult OWL classes, but these programs had not run in a few years because of a lack of trained facilitators. One of the most common things I hear from the parents of the youth taking our OWL classes was that they had never learned the things we were teaching their kids and that they were hungry for this kind of knowledge and discussion themselves. It became my dream to build on the work of previous DRAs and build towards South Valley offering the entire life cycle of OWL classes on a regular basis. And I have been so pleased to see that dream manifest itself through the hard work of Liz Martin, as well as Christy Montrone-Burns and many others that I don't have time to name. When I realized that my time at South Valley was getting close to ending, I became thoughtful about how I could continue to make an impact on this community after I passed my baton. So I took my professional development funds that last year and used them to travel to Boston to get trained as a facilitator for the junior high and high school OWL classes. Facilitating these classes is an extremely fulfilling and exhausting endeavor. Comprehensive sexuality education is precisely that, comprehensive. We cover everything for the entire life cycle, from the basics of how our bodies work to keeping them healthy and safe while fully enjoying our sexuality, to understanding our own desires, identities, and values in action and in activism. We OWL facilitators are constantly updating our own understanding of the evolving and innovating field of sexuality. If you want to know the latest research on and most effective forms of birth control, the status of sexuality, legalities, and civil rights, and the most current thinking on consent, gender, and sexual identities, among other cutting-edge topics related to ourselves as sexual beings, ask your OWL facilitators, and this community is blessed to have more than most. They'll either have that information or they'll know where to direct you to find it. All of this takes time, attention, and emotional energy, but it's worth it. It's worth it because as an OWL facilitator, I am working on making the future I want to live in. I want a world where there are no unintended pregnancies. I want a world where sexual violence is mostly unheard of, and when it does happen, is taken seriously and prosecuted appropriately instead of dismissed and disbelieved. I want a world where everyone is fully informed and fully empowered about their bodies and their sexuality and their sexual expression. I want a world where every person is supported in living as the fullest manifestation of the weave of their being, loving whom they love freely and openly, and creating families in whichever configuration best brings them joy. This future can only be created through an understanding of the ways that oppression begins by stripping dignity and agency from our identities and our most intimate of choices. So I facilitate OWL at South Valley because I hold as true that agency over one's sexuality and sexual expression is a human right. I did not have this strong belief before I came to South Valley. It was nurtured here in this community, and now it forms the basis of my faith and my advocacy. When we support OWL classes, we as a community build advocacy for reproductive justice and justice for sexual and gender minorities, as you would expect from a community that supports a program of comprehensive sexuality education. But because the future must be intersectional or it will not be free, OWL classes also build advocacy for racial justice, economic justice, and justice for those of differing abilities. If there is an injustice that affects us as individuals and as a community, I guarantee you that it is coming up in OWL classes. When a person has been freed from the constraints of imposed ignorance, confusion, and fear regarding their own bodies, when they claim agency over those choices that form the very heart of who they are, when they move forward whole and unashamed They have the energy and the power to change the world in waves of exponential magnitude, and they go on to hand those same keys to others. Participating in this dream of liberation that has been nurtured in the collective heart of this community, building this mission and strengthening this ministry that is helping to fundamentally change the very fabric of our society is why I am here at South Valley, even if and especially when you do not see me. Thank you.
Thanks, Trista. So before we do our offering words, Reverend Bob asked me to introduce our stewardship pledge drive this year. So first I wanted to lead off with the go to action, what we want everybody to do. And the go to action that we want everybody to do is fill out one of these 3 T cards that are in the back near the office. The 3 T stands for time, talents, and treasure. It's how we decide personally for ourselves how we give back to the community that we feel like is giving to us. Okay, so that is the call to action. About 90% of the budget for the church comes from these 3 T cards. And for those that are newer, one-off donations are great, but 3 T cards are even better because they let us budget, and they let us budget against things like, we don't know if those donations are going to be coming is the problem, and the 3 T cards tell us what we can expect to come, and they let us budget for the future. So the theme this year is Dreams and Deeds. We want everybody to consider for themselves what their dreams for this congregation and for our community are, and what deeds they can commit to helping that come to pass. In particular, I wanted to talk about some changes that are happening for this year's pledge drive. There are some changes that you may notice. One of the big changes is that we're not going to have Bob for more than a year or 2, and we need to have a search for a settled minister. That search for a settled minister is rather expensive. It's going to cost about $10,000, is what the projections are. So we want everybody to look inside and see what we can help with. That means that our goal in terms of, well, I'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, so a couple other changes so the $10,000 expense, that's an opportunity for us. We get to find a minister that we love and is going to stay with us for a long time. But it's a challenge that we're all going to have to rise up to. So I want everybody to consider in themselves what they can do. Another change that's going to happen this year that we haven't had much in the past is home meetings. The board has spent a lot of effort organizing home meetings that we want everybody to participate in. So even if you are very involved in the community or not involved at all, we want everybody to participate in these home meetings. So when you're invited, please participate. So one last thing that's changing a little bit from last year's is on the back of the 3T card, there's a suggested giving guide. Now this is a suggested guide. We want everybody to do what feels right for you, but at the same time, this is a giving guide that the UUA has published that we have decided to accept as a congregation as a guideline for our members. So that's most of what I wanted to go through about what's changing this year. You're going to get an email reiterating all this and making it all a little more clear. But I want to go through some other goals that we have. So we have a $192,000 pledge amount goal for the entire congregation. That's quite a bit more than we had last year. Last year, our total pledge amounts were $164,000, so it's about a $28,000 increase. So it's a big increase. So we all need to dig in and see what we can make toward this goal. And a couple other goals that I wanted to set were 20 new pledgers. So if you have not pledged before, we really want you to consider it. But we really want to find the people that have not pledged before and ask them to. And 90 total people. Last year we had 80 total pledgers, and we want to increase that a little bit. In prior years, that's actually been decreasing. For example, in 2016 we had 98. In 2017, we had 89, so I don't think 90 is really out of the question at all. At any rate, let's move on to the offering words. It is our practice here at South Valley to split our worship service offerings with a charitable organization that aligns with our values and principles. For January and February, the offering will be split with No Kid Hungry. In America today, 1 in 6 kids faces hunger. Working with local partners across the country, No Kid Hungry is ending childhood hunger by ensuring that kids get the food they need, like healthy breakfast at school and free meals during the summertime. Will you join me in saying the words printed in the order of service for our offering? We are this church. We are its hands, its heart, its voice. Together, we share the wealth of this community and sustain it with our gifts. No Kid Hungry thanks you for your gifts.
For the Heart That Is Free by Meg Bowman. For the heart that is free, Life is a celebration of beauty, a festival of spirit. For the heart that is free, time shared with friends becomes a kaleidoscope of precious moments. Within each of us lies that power to seize the hour and live by cherished dreams. For the heart that is free is a delicious gift, a fragile, savored morsel. Each moment a beautiful time for you to be you and for me to be me.
Thank you, Trista. Thank you for your beautiful, heartfelt words. What an inspiring call to arms. So grateful. And thank you to David Wilcox for his taking off the campaign. David's doing an enormous amount of work. He's such a talented guy doing great things to help this church stay sustainable. Co-creation. So imagine you're about to participate in a meeting at church, some kind of committee meeting, doesn't matter. You sit down at the table waiting for the meeting to start, and someone sits next to you. But they don't just sit next to you. They sit so close to you that your chairs are touching. They're so close that you can tell what they had for lunch. You're uncomfortable, but you don't say anything. The meeting begins, and the group is making a plan, some plan. And as they make this plan, you say, hey, when I was at this other church, we did the same thing, but we did it this way. And everyone turns and looks at you like you have two heads. And the chair of the meeting says to you, there is only one way to do this, and that's the way we do this. Your way is no way at all. Between the person sitting very close to you and the reaction to your idea, you're feeling pretty bad. In fact, you're feeling awful. When the meeting ends, the chair says, well, that was a great meeting. Thanks, everyone. Can't wait for the next one, right? Right? And you don't say anything. You just leave. So right now, I want to clarify that this is an imaginary meeting. That's not meant to represent any meetings I've ever been in South Valley. It's a rhetorical device, okay? But consider how that meeting might have gone if the group had a clear sense of boundaries, especially physical boundaries. How would it have been different if the group had been open to difference? How about if everyone involved was good at communicating? Boundaries and diversity and communication, they're all important values of the Our Whole Lives sexuality curriculum. Today I want to talk about how Our Whole Lives, or OWL, is so much more than just a really great class on sex. The ideas behind OWL, the values, can enrich our lives as individuals and as a church community. So I hope folks have heard me say before that South Valley is really an unusually healthy congregation. It really is. And I mean healthy in the ways that people relate, healthy in how they resolve conflict, and healthy in how the folks here face challenges. And I honestly believe that a good part of that health is due to the fact that so many folks have been involved in OWL in one way or another. So I'm going to offer the values of OWL, not just as a way to have better intimate relations, to have better sex, but as a way to have better lives in and out of this congregation. I know there's some folks, we did that stand-up thing with Liz, that was amazing. There's some folks who haven't done any OWL here, and there's folks for whom it's been a while since their involvement in OWL. So I want to spend a few moments talking exactly about what those values and ideas and assumptions are that undergird all of OWL. So, as Trista said, the Our Whole Lives sexuality curriculum is meant to be comprehensive. It tries to address all the ways that we encounter sexuality, and it does it in age-appropriate ways. And Liz mentioned, there's different classes or different age groups, first grade all the way through, hopefully, older adults. And all these classes ensure that folks are getting the information that fits their developmental capacities, and they also remind us that learning about sexuality and learning about ourselves is a lifelong endeavor. We're working on it until we die. So OWL lays out 4 major explicit values. Self-worth, that everyone is entitled to dignity and to having their own beliefs about sexuality. Sexual health, which includes the idea that more information is better than less, and definitely better than none. Responsibility, that everyone has a right and a responsibility and an obligation to make sound sexual choices. And finally, justice and inclusivity, that sexual relationships should always be by mutual consent, and that all the expressions of sexual identity, of orientation, of gender, deserve our respect. Pretty good values, huh? A lot like our 7 principles, if you unpack them. So the people who wrote OWL, the curriculums, also started from a common set of assumptions. And I'm going to share the assumptions, and then I promise I'm not going to read any more lists. This is the last list in the sermon, okay? So here are the assumptions. All people are sexual, and that may also take the form of being asexual. Sexuality is a good part of the human experience. Sexuality includes much more than sexual behavior. Human beings are sexual from the time they are born until they die. It's natural to express sexual feelings in a variety of ways. People engage in sexual behavior for a variety of reasons, including to express caring and love, to experience intimacy and connection with one another, to share pleasure, to bring new life into the world, and to experience fun and relaxation. And these are all legitimate. And finally, sexuality in our society is damaged by violence, by exploitation, alienation, dishonesty, abuse of power, and the treatment of people as objects. I like these assumptions, and they are the basis of all the classes, regardless of the age group. The Reverend Cynthia Breen says it so well. To offer sexuality education in a congregation is to acknowledge that human sexuality is simply too important, too beautiful, and too potentially dangerous to be ignored in a religious community. I think it's one of the best things we do as Unitarian Universalists. I know that OWL literally saves lives. I'm not exaggerating. It saves lives. But beyond learning about healthy sexuality, how does OWL teach us to be in community? So let's start with that obvious value, boundaries. Boundaries. Having healthy boundaries is essential for all the different ways that we can be together. In terms of sexuality, the musician Peter Alsop, he has a great rhyme for children about setting boundaries around our bodies. This will actually remind you of what Liz did. This rhyme goes, "My body's nobody's body but mine. You run your own body, let me run mine. Sometimes it's hard to say no and be strong. When those no feelings come, then I know something's wrong. Because my body's mine from my head to my toe. Please leave it alone when you hear me say no." So this ditty speaks well to physical boundaries. And there are lots of other boundaries to consider too. Emotional boundaries, boundaries in language and names, boundaries that address differences in power. Boundaries are incredibly important in church life too. I'm fond of saying, healthy people respond to healthy boundaries in healthy ways, and unhealthy people don't. And for the record, unhealthy people deserve more of our compassion, not less. More of our compassion. As an example of healthy boundaries, speaking of the pledge drive, the board and the finance committee had a very thoughtful conversation about who could and couldn't see individual financial information about contributions. That conversation was at heart about boundaries. And boundaries are best when they're discussed by everyone involved and revisited from time to time to make sure that the boundaries are still working. We have boundaries in this church related to how adults interact with children, boundaries about handling money, boundaries about who holds what positions. These boundaries help us to understand how to relate to each other, and they really lower the anxiety level in the system. They make us calmer knowing what the boundaries are. Let's talk about embracing diversity, another core value in OWL. In OWL, there's this fantastic phrase I love called, "Don't yuck my yum." I really love saying, "Hey man, don't yuck my yum." And it means if you don't like something that I happen to like, don't put it down. So if I'm really into putting pineapple on my pizza, please don't make that vomiting noise while I'm ordering pizza with pineapples. And do more than that. Respect my taste of pizza. And as something that's actually important to me. You can order your own pizza. We can enjoy our different pizzas together. We need to see that our tastes, our appetites, are part of our identity and are not negotiable. In Unitarian Universalism, we are non-creedal, meaning that we aren't required to swear to a specific belief about the nature of the divine. So now we can just stop there and simply agree to tolerate each other's theologies. But tolerance is pretty weak tea. Tolerance is not love. If we're truly not going to yuck each other's yums spiritually, we're going to have to engage with each other's beliefs with curiosity, compassion. When we encounter a belief system that's different from ours, I think a good reaction is to ask, how does that system help that person to live better? And is there something here that can help me to live better? We're trying to remember that the other person values their beliefs just as deeply as we value our beliefs. I think that's a way to grow more love. I think it's a road to a beloved community. On to communication. Good communication is asking for what you want and saying what you don't want. It's about seeking to understand and to be understood. In terms of OWL, we know that there are things that keep us from saying the things that we really need to our partners. We may be held back by not wanting to hurt our partner's feelings. Sex is really hard to talk about. And sometimes we can actually create misunderstandings and false assumptions because we speak vaguely or not at all about what's going on for us. When we're talking to our partners, it's helpful to use I statements and to make observations of fact rather than speculating on motives. So say you're in a new relationship with someone that you're attracted to, but whenever you kiss, the other person constantly giggles, and that kind of annoys you. So to approach that conversation, it's better to talk about how the giggling makes you feel. It distracts me when you giggle, and it makes me feel like you don't take me seriously. And leave it to the other person to explain why they're giggling and what that actually means. Good communication means sometimes taking risks to name those things that are awkward to name. But I've consistently found that it's so much better to have 10 minutes of tense conversation and get things out than to let things fester. In church, we feel especially obliged to be nice in our communications because we want church, reasonably, to be all about good feelings. We want a refuge from all the other conflict in our lives. But sometimes in order to have that refuge, we may not be real or we may not be honest. We may not be communicating well. The reality is that even in congregations, healthy congregations like South Valley, conflict is inevitable. Conflict happens. Conflict means that we're having a genuine exchange of ideas, that we're being authentic with each other. Conflict is normal, and the decision for us is not whether to have conflict or not, but whether this conflict is going to be healthy or unhealthy. And the difference between healthy and unhealthy conflict is communication. Speaking directly and honestly with the person we're in conflict with, not triangulating by bringing a third person in. These are patterns of good communication. And I practice these all the time because, frankly, I screw up a lot. I create conflict. I'm a new minister, and I fumble, and I misunderstand things, and I get my words wrong. And fortunately, I'm saved by having decent communication skills, and truly by the generosity of the people in this congregation. And for that, I'm grateful. So that generosity of spirit is part of healthy communication too. Finally, one other element of OWL is that it asks people to examine the messages that they may be unconsciously carrying. Especially in the classes for older youth and adults, OWL explores the ways that we've been bombarded with messages about gender roles and sexuality while we're growing up. We get so much misinformation, and on the other hand, we're not given fundamental information about the normal bodily functions of people with male and female bodies. And that leads to a lot of ignorance and misunderstanding. It leads to a lot of pain. It reminds me of a time I had an opportunity to sit in on a first grade OWL class at a church in Chicago, actually at the Oak Park Church, the Frank Lloyd Wright Church. And if you ever get a chance to teach first grade OWL, man, you're in for such a good experience. So as part of the class, we took a field trip down to the men's and women's rooms. And this is while the service was going on. So we all, the whole class together, boys and girls, went down to the men's and women's rooms. And after checking that it was empty, we went into the women's room and had a little tour. And it was nice. There was a chair and some potpourri by the mirror. We pointed out the stalls and the tampon dispenser, and that was great. And then we went to the men's room. The men's room was empty too. It didn't seem quite as clean. There was no potpourri. And it smelled terrible. Like, so terrible that all the first graders immediately, simultaneously yelled, "Ew!" Like 10 of them. It was so loud, And the teachers were like trying to keep it together. I was trying to keep a straight face. They're trying to keep it together, but we all just like lost it when one of the first graders said, "Breathe through your mouth, it smells better." So some messages we receive require re-examining when we get older. Those poor kids are really going to need to re-examine their ideas. But in a church, we bring all these messages that our families gave us, that the media gave us, and if we come from another religion or even another UU church, we'll bring these deeply seated and different ideas about how to be religious, about what's right and what's wrong, about who has authority and who doesn't. These come into play in all the ways and all the things that we do as a congregation. They have great power. But these ideas lose some of their power when they see the light of day, when they're scrutinized. In this congregation, I am constantly deeply moved by the courage and resilience of people who come to this sanctuary despite the trauma they've experienced in other places, in other churches. I see you, and I'm honored to be with you as you do the work of re-examining the messages that you received here in this UU sanctuary. It's an honor. The Our Whole Lives curriculum suggests to us a way of being that can help connect us to the divine as we each understand it. When we live these values, we move towards spiritual depth. One of my core beliefs is that we conjure the holy through our relationships. OWL is a model for deep and healthy connection, for fostering those holy relationships. My prayer for us, and for everyone who will be touched by OWL this year and in the years to come, my prayer is that we hold our boundaries, and also stay open to the vibrancy of difference. My prayer is that we communicate well and that we examine our beliefs. And above all, my prayer is that we love each other and we love ourselves. Amen. Blessed be. I invite you to rise in body or spirit for our final hymn, number 1053, How Could Anyone?
Extinguish this chalice, but not the warmth of the unity, the light of truth, or the energy of action. These behold in our hearts until we meet.